Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Rummel. I co-direct together with Mike Brennan and Eunice Bautista the Post-Conviction Justice Project here at USC. PCJP is a clinical program at the law school where Mike and Eunice and I train and supervise law students
that represent clients who are currently going through the parole hearing process. And we'll discuss that a little bit later as we discuss the parole process and what that looks like. I think the best way, especially just to get started, would to talk and hear from the panelists to allow them to introduce themselves, right? That's why we're here today, to hear a little bit about their story. So if you all can introduce yourselves, we can start with Romarilyn. We can start with you and then go to Ashley, Marcus, and Charles, and just introduce yourselves, maybe just a short, and then we'll go to the first question.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Romarilyn Ralston. I'm a formerly incarcerated survivor, prison abolitionist, and feminist. I earned a BA from Pitzer College after incarceration and a master's from Washington University in St. Louis in 2016. I am currently the program director for Project Rebound at Cal State University Fullerton. Project Rebound supports the higher education and successful reintegration of the formerly incarcerated. So I get an opportunity to work with my peers from across California who have survived incarceration as well, and help them earn their bachelor's or master's degrees, and to give back to the community through a lot of civic engagement and support work through Project Rebound. I'm also the co-chair of the CSU Project Rebound Policy and Advocacy Committee. I've worked on a number of pieces of legislation over the last 3 years. Some I think have really made a difference for those I've left behind at CIW and at CCWF. I've worked on AB 2533 in coalition with other support groups, SB 136, which was the removal of the 1-year enhancement, SB 118, which has banned the box of higher education that passed this year, and AB 2542, the Racial Justice Act, which I'm super proud about being a part of that coalition, and AB 2533, which was the Care and Dignity Act, the indigent bill with Assembly Member Mark Stone. I'm also a member and a policy consultant for the California Coalition for Women Prisoners, and very proud to be a part of that organization. But most of all, I am thrilled to be a part of this panel. I am grateful to the support, for the support of PCJP over the years while I was in prison. Thanks to Michael Brennan and Heidi, I am free and have been free for almost 10 years and have had the opportunity to get back to my peers, my community, my family, and to be a part of events like this. So thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to this discussion.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Smith. I am a 3L here at Gould. I've been with the project for a little over a year now. I've worked on a variety of cases with a variety of clients. Most notably, I worked on Charles's case, who is also a panelist here, and I was his legal representative at his hearing this past January, and I am working on a hearing coming up this December as well.
Who's next? Is that me or is that Charles?
Marcus.
Yeah, that's you, Marcus.
That's for me then. Marcus, it's an honor and a privilege to be here, for real. Incarcerated May 23rd, 1996. Did my time due to the help of Heidi, Anna, Elizabeth, my auntie, Michelle, for being at USC all those years and having that connection. My hard work, my preparation, my family. January 21st, 2019, I was released. Martin Luther King Day. Day I'll never forget. Since then, I've been living and loving, man. Just hardworking. One of my good friends, has his own business, pest control. So I'm in the pest control business. My family, due to Corona being a quarantine thing and everyone's at home, everyone wants to do home improvement. So my family were into the beautification of houses and homes. So I've been into that a lot. Hard work, good food, shopping like a teenage girl, buying a new pair of shoes every other week. Plenty of pictures, man. Just loving life, being there for my family, being there for anyone that I know that got out and needs my assistance, because I navigated my way through the reentry process of just being back a part of society. Just being there and being able to help. It's a blessing. I love it. That's me in a nutshell.
Charles, I'm honored to be here. Anna, Ashley, Heidi, I credit them with me sitting here today, being able to talk to you guys. I was released May 13, 2020 after 27 years and 13 days. Now I'm a dog trainer for Paws for Life Canine Rescue. We rescue dogs from high-rate kill shelters. We train them, we rehabilitate them, and find them forever homes. I'm also working at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles as a housekeeper. I'm recently engaged. Yeah, life has just been, it's been really wonderful for me. I don't take anything for granted. I'm just blessed. I'm blessed to, have the clinic and, Eunice and everybody that, gave me that support and believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. So I'm just grateful for all those things. And I'm happy to be here and be a part of this conversation.
And I want to, iterate that I'm thankful that you're all here. We've had discussions before this. I've gotten to hear a little bit about each of your stories, and we're excited. I think this year, more than ever, we've seen kind of an upswelling discussion about racial injustice, especially whether it's in the world or the criminal justice system. And can you all, we're going to start with Charles on this question, then go to Romarilyn. And can you tell a little bit about how your experience, the arrests, perhaps the interrogation, the transfer to adult court from juvenile court during the trial or sentencing, or during the incarceration period? How did you see the racial injustice in the system? And are there areas that you think that reform could happen? Perhaps, Charles, we can start first.
Well, from the beginning of my arrest, after I was arrested, my parents were never contacted. Nobody, it was just me, 3 or 4 hours in the interrogation room, no representation, anything. And you never really think about that type of stuff because it happens so often. You hear about it so often. So you start to think of it as the norm. But as a juvenile, you get bound over to adult court. You really don't know what it means, but you're just going through the motions and just hoping for the best. I think that if people understood more what their rights really were and not just basing it on what you see around the neighborhood or what people are telling you, good representation, people taking the time to explain to you what's going on, because you don't really know what's going on, then they send you to adult prison and then you have to learn to survive. You don't really know anything. You're pretty much through in a lion's den, and everything that you learn to survive in prison are not the things that you need to learn to get out of prison. So you become, I don't know, you start to take on other people's ways, other people's identities and stuff, because you don't really have your own. You're a kid in an adult prison. And I really think that kids shouldn't be sent to adult prisons without, the way they throw you in there is just, you're lost. You're a lost soul and you become prime pickings for everybody else for manipulation, for other peoples to prey on you. and then you have no hope. So I think if we can find a way to give people hope and show them that there are people out here, there is support, I think that will go a long ways, because when you have no hope, your actions are of a person with no hope. And before the clinic, I had no hope. I I was a lost soul. I was just going through the motions day in and day out. I wasn't living, I was existing in an animalistic world. You know, prison is not a nice place. It's a very mean, cruel place. And once I got involved with the clinic, and Anna was my first attorney in my first hearing, and it wasn't easy because you learn to be so untrusting, and because in my life everybody had an angle, so you spend more time trying to figure out other people's angle than really trying to see that there are people that will help you. So I think it's just, we have to let them teach the kids and teach people that are going through this process that there is hope, that you don't have to fall victim to your environment.
Thank you, Charles. Romarilyn, would you like to add to that, or do you have any further comments on that?
Sure, thank you, Chief, and thank you, Charles, for sharing your experiences. So I'll just speak in general. I believe most people on this call realize that, you know, in this country, there's systemic racism, there's structural racism, and the criminal justice or criminal injustice legal punishment system is, you know, one of the areas where we see a lot of disparity when it comes to the treatment of Black and Brown people. We've seen it over the last 6 or 7 years played out on television. Actually, maybe 8 years since Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown and you know, most recently George Floyd. So we know that these injustices have existed for centuries, since Black people were brought to this country in chains and enslaved. The prison system, the criminal legal system is part of that process that helps to maintain slavery in this country. And that's why I think we see so many people of color, especially Black people, in chains, serving extremely long sentences for sometimes very small infractions. So California is one of the worst states in the US when it comes to systemic racist disparities and mass incarceration. In California, a Black man is over 8 times more likely to be incarcerated than a white man. Black women are incarcerated at a higher rate than white women. And I saw this when I was incarcerated. You know, at 24 years old, I entered the court system as a young adult, thinking that, you know, I would have the opportunity to share my story, to share my experiences with a jury and a courtroom that would be empathetic to my plight, that would understand the conditions of a Black person in this country, and that would hold the responsibilities of seeking justice to a high standard. But yet I didn't receive those things in court. I faced all white jury. I was convicted of felony murder with an underlying felony that I was never charged with, never convicted of. And so these are some of the disparities and the biases that happen within our court system when it comes to Black people who are standing before this system. So the experiences that Charles spoke about, you know, in prison, you know, being in very violent situations under-resourced, overcrowded, lack of humanity. All of these things exist for us, sometimes in our communities, and then we're placed in these cages, in these prisons, where we are continually dehumanized and racialized. And when you see the majority of the folks around you that look like you, you have to pause and say, this is by design, this is a plan. And so, you know, this question is so big, you know, we don't have enough time to even think about unpacking, you know, the impact of racial injustice in this country, or just in California. You know, LA itself, you know, has more Black and brown women incarcerated than white. 75% of the jail population in your backyard in LA are women of color. So, you know, this should be, you know, something that we should all be concerned about. You know, we keep hearing the numbers that 2.3 million folks are incarcerated. The United States holds more people in jails and prisons than any other country in the world. We're 5% of the population, but yet we hold 25% of the world's incarcerated population. And women have been the fastest growing incarcerated population since the 80s. We keep hearing these numbers over and over and over again. And yet we allow our tax dollars to primarily be spent on corrections and law enforcement. You know, law enforcement and corrections that target certain populations. And we know who those people are. Those are Black and brown people, people that look like Charles and I. And I'm not saying that I'm innocent, but I am saying that the system itself does not treat Black people and brown people the same way, in the same respect, same regard as they do white people in this country. And so I'll just end with saying, you know, the racial injustice that exists in this country has to be exposed, and it has to be abolished, you know, and whatever system that we decide to come up with, it has to be better than the one that we have, because what we currently have is just an extension of slavery. And that's an abomination to humanity.
Well, Marilyn, you're warmed up now. You have us warmed up, I'm sure, listening now. You know, you talk about, you went in when you were 24 years of age, and this is a story, and that you want redemption, right? That that these are extremely large sentences, sometimes for very small crimes, and that it maintains this, you know, aspect of slavery, as you were talking about. And now there's this parole process, though. What is it, which is supposed to, you know, once you've you know, done your time in the system, and that's supposed to be your redemption, but sometimes that's not the case, right? And what does it feel like to go through it? What parts were frustrating? And if you had, and if you know, want to share any parts of it, I think that would be extremely helpful. And then Ashley, we're going to come to you, because I know a lot of people on this call, a lot of the students, right? They maybe haven't represented people through this process. And what were something that surprised you when working through the parole process? So Romarilyn, we'll start with you.
Wow. Okay, Chief. These are not easy questions. They're very big and broad and heavy and hard to address. The parole process, inside and outside, you know, there's different components to it. And, you know, when you're inside of a prison and you're facing the parole board, the parole process, which has changed a little bit, you're looking at a panel of commissioners and deputy commissioners that consist of law enforcement, judges, most of the time former DAs, prosecutors, you know, folks who have been on the side of the law where they have ensured public safety and made sure that there were tough on crime bills and laws that lock people up. And so, although they say the parole hearing is not a trial, it very much feels like one. You are in a room, and I know Heidi and Michael can attest to this, and so can Charles and everyone who's gone through this process with us. Thank you. Thank you so much for sitting beside us in those spaces that are supposed to be a hearing to address who we are at the moment, how we've been able to transform our lives and transcend our thinking, while we've been incarcerated. But it oftentimes ends up being a retrial that feels very real and is very traumatic and traumatizing to us in that room, when we are forced to try to relive accounts in our life that oftentimes we may not even remember, and are very painful for us to remember. For me personally, the survivors of the person I harmed oftentimes visited the hearing, and it was extremely traumatic for them, sitting in there with me sitting in there with them, and we being primarily the only white people, Black people in the room. The commissioners are usually all white. As you can see, Michael Brennan and Heidi are both white too, and many of our law students have been white. So it's this dichotomy, this dynamic that exists throughout the criminal and justice system. The Black people on one side of the room, the white people on the other side of the room. And it continues to reinforce this idea of difference and who we are. So post-release from incarceration, you're on parole. Again, the parole officers that I've had have all been white. And so it's again, that reinforcement, the criminalization of Black bodies, and the law enforcement, the law keepers, hold another body. And so it's just, it's a hard process to overcome and try to heal from, because as a Black person in this world and in some of the spaces that I now have the privilege of going and being a part of, I still have that trauma in my body. And so I feel like an imposter oftentimes at the university, on panels like this, in the world when I'm traveling and being in predominantly white spaces, because I don't feel like I belong, because it's been ingrained in me, from growing up to experiencing it in the carceral system, to being on parole, that I don't belong certain places. So I don't want to get on a soapbox, Chief, but you asked me to answer a question. So I'm trying to do my very best to say that the parole process definitely needs some reform. There needs to be, just like the jury's process, just like the courtroom dynamics, all of this needs reform. There needs to be folks who are part of the parole commissioners and deputy commissioners that have a lived experience with incarceration or have been system impacted, have some deeper understanding of the criminal justice system other than being part of law enforcement, so that there's more empathy in the room and there's a broader perspective of who we are as rehabilitated people fighting for their lives in a hearing that is supposed to be about who we are and who we become And the same thing with the parole process. You spoke very briefly about redemption and have, paid your debt to society and served your time. Those of us who have multiple hearings year after year, decade after decade, we served our time in spades, often years beyond what we were sentenced to our base term because of an indeterminate sentence. And then sometimes the governor steps in and reverses those release plans that you have. And so you're continuously serving time that you shouldn't be serving. So the parole process comes in and says, now you have to be on this stream for an additional 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, sometimes life, to be shackled for sometimes the remaining of your life to a system that is set up and designed to not just break you, but oftentimes rob you of any access to a quality life within society. Because once we're on parole, and as long as we're on parole, and for the rest of our lives, oftentimes background checks, barriers to employment, education, healthcare, housing, there's collateral consequences to parole. There's collateral consequences to a felony conviction. There's collateral consequences to the trauma that we experience while incarcerated. So a lot of these things we need to abolish and create systems that are caring systems that support individuals who have been harmed, and I think that's all of us.
Okay, I can jump in here. So I want to back up a little bit and kind of, just for those on the call that aren't familiar with the parole process, to just give a little bit of a background of what the parole process does look like. So once inmates do reach a point where they are eligible for parole, they then get a date where they can go to the parole board. And at PCJP, our role is obviously to prepare our clients for that hearing. Within that hearing, what happens is we represent, our clients, the inmate, but then there also is the DA that is also present in the room. And then there's also 2 commissioners as well in the room. And the hearing begins with the commissioners asking the inmate questions, and then the DA is given an opportunity to ask the inmate questions, and then legal counsel for the inmate is also given an opportunity to ask the inmate questions, and then the inmate can give a closing statement as well as both legal representatives. So yes, of course. So in the parole process, really what the standard is current dangerousness, and that is what the commissioners are looking for. They want to know, is this individual a current danger to public safety? So what I found surprising, being the legal representative in the room, is that they focus a lot on static factors and, what has happened in the past and things that, the individual just cannot change. So that was a little frustrating at times, but I think relating to our conversation here in regards to racial injustice, I found it most frustrating that there was really no space for some of this context that we're speaking of, right? So there was really no space to talk about, what was going on in the Black and Brown communities during some of these times where, these crimes were committed. For example, we have a lot of individuals and clients that are serving sentences for, drug crimes. And, there was a huge population that was affected by the crack cocaine epidemic, specifically in the Black community. And I found that frustrating, that I wasn't able to talk about that, and that there wasn't a space for Charles to be able to talk about, how some of those things affected him, or how, systemic racism has pushed Black and Brown communities into communities of poverty, and how poverty, creates a cycle of criminology and, crime. And it's just frustrating that there's no space in that hearing. There's no humanizing the experience at all. It's really just, it comes down to, you know, just looking at this paper and what this paper says that they did. And I just think that we need to develop a system where we are able to talk about some of the context and historical factors that do play a part in this. So that was just my experience with some things that surprised me.
Actually, that's kind of a really wonderful transition. You're talking about humanity, right? And how this system strips humanity. And that's often what racial injustice does, right? It strips the humanity from the people who the system is working actively against. Something that Romarilyn, you talked about, was the collateral consequences that happens from being a part of the system and the parole process, even though it's supposed to be a part of a redemption. Marcus, I know yesterday we talked a bit about this, about how this, you know, how you become defined by your crime, how you lose your humanity in this system, and how sometimes race plays, sometimes and often plays a huge role in this. Can you touch a bit about this? And Charles, I know you had some wonderful points on this aspect as well. So can you follow up after Marcus?
For me, early on in my incarceration, it was a lot of anger. You know, you see me all smiles now all the time, but early on it was anger. A lot of it, frustration, because I felt like as a 15-year-old, me and my co-defendant, my cousin, as 15-year-old Black men coming out of Inglewood at the time. Inglewood had no superior court. You know, we were bound over to Torrance. If anyone knows anything about Torrance Court is promoting all white. They have the highest conviction rate at the time. So it wasn't about making sure that these young kids or these young teenagers were treated fairly, treated accordingly. It was about getting us incarcerated as quick as possible, getting us to the adult system so they can make money off us. And it really made me feel inhumane because I now became a number. You know what I mean? I still know my CDC number. Like Romarilyn was talking about just the parole part of it, still having to use my CDC number, even when I'm free. So it really does feel angry. Like I was telling you yesterday, a lot of just, I don't even like to say political, but a lot of it plays a part in it. You know, I had JJC Court, that's promoting in Watts, Black judge. You know, he found me suitable for juvenile court. But as soon as he retired, all of a sudden now the appeals go in. Now I'm not suitable for adult court. You know, the system feels like I should be an adult. I should be charged and threw into the pit, like Charles saying, just fend for myself, man. You know what I mean? At 15, fend for myself. Like I was telling a friend the other day, like I never told my parents this, I never told any of my people, but my first day on the yard at 19 in prison, I saw a man get stabbed in the neck and murdered, period. In the front of the police, in front of everybody. And it was like, man, what have, you know, I'm not innocent, but what have I been shoved into just to make money off of, just to be a number? And it comes down to whether I believe that or not. You know what I mean? Whether I believe that I'm just gonna be a number in here, you're just gonna get bread off of me, and I'm just gonna be in here continually being a F up, you know, walking the yard, playing basketball, using the same drug and alcohol that was in the streets in prison, you know, living that same negative lifestyle. And I basically made a choice to snatch my humanity back, because like I told you yesterday, for me, it was more so of not wanting to let my family down. I want to come out and be a better person than I was when I went in. Seriously, honestly, I want to be in all aspects, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. You know, as kids in prison, we our emotions are like meat to the wolves. You know what I mean? Crying, feeling empathy, feeling all these things are really, really like dead on points for people to prey on you. So you have to conceal your emotions, but at some point you have to be able to reveal your emotions and to embrace your emotions, man. And that's a part of humanity to me, just being just being emotional, being able to communicate, being able to ask for help. That's the most important thing ever. I tell everyone I talk to, kids, adults, everybody, never be afraid to ask for help, man. And that's humanity to me. That's getting my humanity back and being able to come out and be productive. You know what I mean? In whichever way it seems fit, be productive. If my family needs anything, if I can do it in my wings, I'm gonna do it. And so it's just man, it's a lot, but I don't even want to go on with that. Chief. Thank you for the question though, bro. For real. Yeah. Humanity. You have to, man, it's emotional, man. It's emotional. And just being able to hone your humanity, hone your feelings, and understand that you're not enough, man. And even when you're coming out of parole board, I have an open case right now because I don't want to be on parole for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to use my CDC for the rest of my life, man. So just being able to get from up under all this and just being Marcus Antonio Jones, you know what I mean? Not P87028. And that's it, man. That's it, Chief.
Marcus, you'll always be Marcus Antonio Jones to me. Then I'm not gonna call you anything but that. Every
Please
time I see
bro.
you.
Please don't, bro.
Charles, would you like to add a little bit here too? I know we talked yesterday, and I don't want to give anything away, but why don't you jump in here as well? I'm sorry, Charles. I think you're still muted. I think you're still muted, Charles.
Okay.
There you go. There you
go. Wow. Marcus hit the nail on the head. I mean, you for a long time in prison, my first name was never used probably in the first 20-some years of my incarceration. I was just J95. When we talk about humanity, I think the key to humanity is believing that you are human, believing you have self-worth. You sit in there for so long and you start to believe the things they say about you. You're never going home. You have no hope. What are you trying to do positive things for? And like Marcus said, emotions, put them in an envelope and mail them home, because there was no place for emotions in prison. If you showed emotions, you were like bloody meat in a shark-infested ocean. You were preyed upon. To go back a little bit, from the time of my incarceration until the day Ashley walked in the room for me to meet her, I had never had anyone of color that I felt was on my side or was there for me. From the trial to the first hearing, and the first hearing, talk about a traumatic experience. My first hearing was so bad that Anna, who was my lawyer, she cried. She cried because it was a retrial. No, it wasn't really a retrial. It was more like a lynching. I went in there and there was nothing I could have said or did when I walked in that room that would allow them to say you're suitable for parole. Their mind was made up before any of that happened that they were going to deny me. The only question was, how long? You go in there and you sit there, you've done so much work on yourself, and they just break you down. They assassinate your character, they tear you apart, and then they tear your family apart, and they look down on you for things you had to do to survive. But they've never experienced the things that you experienced growing up, in poverty communities. They never experienced that stuff, so they had no empathy, they had no understanding. The only thing they knew was, here's a Black man sitting in front of them, convicted of a crime, and we're not letting him go. No matter how much work I have done on myself, it didn't matter. So it goes like when I talked about hope before, it's so discouraging, you lose hope. And when I met Marcus, I had just been denied for 5 years. And he was running a personal development class. And I enrolled in that class. And that was one of the best classes I ever attended in prison, because it allowed me to be emotional, to not be treated like an animal. Because if you treat a man like an animal for so long, eventually he's going to start acting like an animal. I thought I was going to die in prison, and I was okay with that. I had got to the point where they're not going to let me go. So why keep thinking about it? Why keep putting myself through the stress and turmoil of thinking one day they're going to let me go? And that helped me to get through prison emotionless, without emotions for so long. I mean, just when I came back from meeting Ashley for the first time, Anna was a great lawyer, but she was leaving. So she put me in the very capable hands of Ashley. And I went back to the yard. They're like, what happened? I said, I got a lawyer. And I said, she's a sister. And that statement there, I had a crowd of people around me like, are you serious? You have a Black lawyer? And it just shows how it's almost like a unicorn, like it's something so unheard of. When you go in the hearing and you're the only thing of color in that hearing and everybody is hostile against you, how can you relax? How can you show that you've changed when you see the deck is stacked against you? And coming up, you've been programmed to be anti-law enforcement, anti-authority, because you've never had any positive interactions with them. When we were coming up, what happened in the home stayed in the home, and if it didn't, there were consequences. So there was so much that we hold in that we don't talk about. And especially as a young Black man going into prison, the worst thing you want to do is let somebody know you're scared. Like Marcus said, his first day on the yard, he saw somebody get murdered. First day on the yard, they fired the mini 14. I was so scared, but you can't go to nobody like, man, I'm scared. You suppress all these emotions and you put on this facade and you can't be yourself. You start to normalize everything, and just to actually go in there into the parole board with someone of color, someone who really understands what it is to be you, understands what it means to have a curse on you or to be looked down upon just because you were born with a certain complexion. We didn't ask to be born Black. We didn't ask to be born brown. We didn't ask to be born, but it happened.
I think Charles is frozen a little bit, but I think that last point that he was making there is fundamentally important, where he was saying that
you have to.
He's back. You're back. Go ahead, Charles.
Oh, sorry. My connection was unstable, but it's just being able to have somebody where you're sitting there and you're not alone. And that's the feeling. Sometimes you just feel so alone, and loneliness is a horrible feeling, but it's worse to feel alone in a crowded room. You have all these people around you, but you really feel like you're by yourself. You can't express yourself. And just the injustice of it all, the way they make you feel, the way they put you in situations where you have no choice but to survive. But then they come back and they penalize you for everything that you had to learn to survive. Now prison is a lot different now. They're trying to make changes, but they have a long way to go. The kids are coming in so much younger now. The babies are coming to prison now, and you see them every day. The day I made the decision to walk away from gangs in prison, it was a difficult decision because you feel like you're going to be alone again. But when you do it and you have these kids who've looked up to you or been around you saying, I want to do the things you've done. I want to make these changes. That kind of gives you the motivation, that gives you hope. And it kind of puts you on that path like, I can do this. I look at my life like a 100-piece puzzle. If you take one of those pieces out, one incident of my life will be incomplete. That puzzle will be incomplete. Everything that I went through in life, enabled me to sit here before you and talk now. You know, it wasn't hard, it wasn't an easy transition, and it was hard, but had things been different, this may be a whole different ending to my story. Maybe I wouldn't be here. So I'm just, you know, I'm just so grateful to Ashley, Heidi, Anna for, I mean, they gave me hope. I mean, they really, I didn't feel alone anymore for the first time in my life. And like you said, it's emotional, because when you're so conditioned to thinking everybody's against you, and then you find people that really want to help you just because for the humanity of it, because they have empathy, it changes your life. And when you change the way you see things, you change the way you react to them. I mean, like Marcus said, I mean, this conversation can go on. You could have so many subjects, but we only have a certain amount of time. So I'll end at that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Charles. I think I'm back within an internet connection, hopefully. I can't believe 50 minutes has gone by so quickly. I do want to leave a little bit of time for questions, but first I really want to express my deep gratitude for all of you for coming on to talk about this today, especially in a world that just feels so heavy right now with these issues and other issues. You know, PCJP, we like to celebrate our successes, and we've had a lot of successes to celebrate, and that's all wonderful, but all of our successes are in the context of a system where even when someone comes home from prison, they've still suffered so much injustice. They've still been so damaged and hurt and spent extra years and maybe even spent time for crimes they shouldn't have spent time for. I think that's the way Marcus's case is going to go. And I want to give a shout out to Tracy Dresser, who's one of our very earliest PCJP alums from even before my time, who is representing him on appeal. And I'm pretty sure Marcus is not going to stand convicted of the crimes that he went to prison for at 15 when she's finished with his appeal. And that's all we're going to say about it, because she's his lawyer and she's already shaking her finger at me about having him on here in the first place. And he's not allowed to talk about his crime. But we just, you know, that's a huge success, I guess, when we win that case, which I'm sure we will. But that doesn't mean that Marcus didn't go to prison at 15 for a crime he shouldn't have gone to prison for, and grew up there and spent more than half his life there. And yeah, he's an amazing guy right now. He's an amazing, inspirational guy, but that doesn't rectify all the injustices. And like Ashley said, all the work we do, yeah, the parole process is getting better, and yeah, we're good at bringing people home through it. But the fact that you have to go in that room and you can't really talk about what someone's faced in their life, or you don't really have a panel of people who can relate to the lived experiences and judge choices based on a real fundamental lack of understanding of what happens in a lot of our communities, isn't a total success. We're not where we need to be yet. And I appreciate all of you. This is a heavy, weighty subject, but it's an important piece of our work. It's an important component of what we do. And if we don't talk about it and share it, it's never going to get better. So thank you for coming on and sharing that. Thank you, Ro, it's always amazing to see you. And I always learn a million new things when I hear you speak. And Charles and everyone, Chief, thanks for doing such an amazing job. I have one question or comment. I'd like to open it up for Martin Figueroa, who texted a question about the board looking at insight. And I think this sort of touches at what Ashley and Romarilyn talked about a little bit inside the board. It's like, yes, the board of parole hearings is going to look at everything you've done in your life and everything that's happened to you and make a judgment about whether you're dangerous or not. And insight into your choices is an important component of that. But again, like we talked about, you can only judge insight from what you know and how much you understand a person's lived experience. So and Martin, interestingly, is a student at USC and also a parole agent supervisor and is appreciating the conversation. So Martin, do you want to frame your question? If someone can unmute Martin and he can frame his question, and you can direct it at any or all of the panelists that you choose, that'd be terrific.
Hey, Hal, first of all, I want to say thank you. This has been wonderful this morning. I'm actually at work right now. So, but I'm born and raised in East Oakland, and I actually had the largest lifer. I had over 500 lifers in San Francisco for a long time. So I'm really, I actually gave a presentation to the board about 2 weeks ago about lifers, and we have a really good we have a lifer program that we provide. It's called PRN, that we support lifers when they get out. I was just wondering, has it gotten better for you? Because that's good. That's really, really good feedback for me, because I can go ahead and forward that information on to people. Has your experience with parole been better? And has it gotten better at the board in terms of when you go to have your hearings? Has it gotten better over the years?
Who wants to take that? Go ahead, Charles.
Okay, well, as far as insight, like my first hearing, exactly what is insight, but a deeper understanding to how you got to where you are, and understanding, you know, who you were, who you are, and who you're trying to be. But until they come up with a clear definition of what is enough insight, it's still pretty much up to the commissioners, because you can have all the insight you want, but if the commissioner doesn't feel like you have enough insight, that's one of the common things they say, oh, he lacks insight. And how can you really dispute you lack insight? It's just, for me, when they talked about insight in the board hearing, it was just like a term, insight, because there's no clear-cut definition of what is enough insight. You only get so much time to talk. There's only a certain allotted amount of time allotted to have your hearing. So insight is just pretty much in the commissioners, what the commissioner feels is enough. I still think that there needs to be a clear cut of what is enough insight, because without that, if he had a bad day last night and he doesn't feel he had enough insight, he can deny you, just say he lacks insight, and who's going to overturn it? Because the commissioner didn't feel you had enough insight into you, who you were, your life crime. It's just so many different aspects of the hearing that they can say, well, he lacks insight into his post-conviction behavior, or he lacks insight into his life crime. So, I mean, it's gotten a little better. There are more commissioners now that are taking in like the diminished capacity of juveniles and stuff. They take that into consideration, but until they can regulate that, exactly what is enough insight or come up with guidelines, it's still going to be a flawed system.
If I may add,
does anyone else want to talk about insight?
Yeah. May I add a few things, Heidi? Can you hear me? No?
I can hear you,
Okay,
Romarilyn.
awesome. To Charles's point, insight is, one of those terms that's very ambiguous and needs to be defined, but so does remorse. And I think these two terms oftentimes get a lot of people denied suitability because it can be interpreted by the commissioner any way they choose to interpret it, and they can check that box at any time that they want. So I think the process in the boardroom with commissioners, there needs to be some reforms done there as well as on the outside. So I want to speak to the other part of your question about whether or not parole has gotten better. In my current role as program director for Project Rebound and working with formerly incarcerated students, many of our students are on parole. And I've had the opportunity to work with parole officers coming to campus, coming to our house where we house 6 of our students. I've had parole officers call me, referring clients to our program. So I have seen a shift in the attitudes of parole officers towards especially lifers who have come home. I was actually talking to a parole officer on Monday who came to visit one of our students, and just the way that he spoke about him to me would have never happened 10 years ago. There would never have been a parole officer talking to me as a formerly incarcerated person, regardless of my role within a program, of how proud he is of his client. So I think things have shifted. I think the Department of Adult Parole Operations has, or whatever it is, DAPO, has changed. And I think the parole officers that we have today, many of them realize the value and the maturity of a lot of us coming out who have served long sentences. Because as you know, Martin, our recidivism rate is close to 0. So I've heard parole officers time and time again say, I wish I had more people like you on my caseload. So I'll just say to you, continue to do that work and continue to acknowledge those on your caseload who need acknowledging, because it goes a long way. It goes a long way. So thank you for asking that question.
And I know we're a little bit over time, but if there was another question, and I want to be cognizant of the panelists, how the panelists doing on time. That's okay.
Good.
Are there other questions out there, making sure that we're opening it up for people to get their questions in. Use the raise hand function or put it in the chat, either way.
I'm trying to keep up with the chat, but just raise your hand if you have a question you'd like to ask the panelists. Otherwise, we could just ask each panelist to make a quick closing. What do you think about that, Chief?
That works for me.
So we'll leave it wide open, but if each panelist could just give a minute on your reflections on either your experience with PCJP or the conversation here today, or anything you want to say that you feel didn't get said that's important for people to know, that would be great.
I'll start. For me, the experience was beautiful, as you know. Man, freedom is beautiful. But I think on the whole, like criminal injustice, racial, the classes that, as Charles spoke on, I taught a class in personal development, and it was all about insight, remorse, empathy, triggers, causative factors, all these things prepare us for the board. All these things that as criminals, as convicts, as felonies, however we called ourselves in prison, we prepared for parole hearing. I think the best way to decrease the prison population, whether it's brown or black, is to take these same programs that limited they are in prison, but they're there if you choose to take them. Take these same programs and implement them in the juvenile hall system. 15. I was in the juvenile hall system for 3 years, and I saw kids as young as 5 to 6 on up come through, and there were no programs similar to the programs that we have after we've committed our crimes, after we've started a so-called life of crime. I think we should implement those same classes that I was teaching at a young age, at an age when their communication is not where it should be, where they're afraid to use their emotions, where they're afraid to ask for help, and just make it so to where they have that opportunity to learn about triggers and impacts, the ripple effect of their criminal activity, their criminal behavior far amongst their family, their friends, and to the victims and the people that were harmed. I think just a simple knowledge of the impact of their crimes, our crimes as we was teenagers at that age, it could defer, like it most definitely could help in the criminal aspect of our thinking when we was young like that. I really think that. I really do. And that's for mine.
Okay, I am going to be brief, I promise. And sometimes I get a little long-winded. So I'll just say, I owe so much to Heidi and to Michael and to all of the students, to the entire program, to PCJP. I am so grateful for having the opportunity to have been represented by the law school. You know, the students are brilliant. I had a state appointed attorney for the first two hearings, and it was a disaster. It was a disaster. But when Michael stepped in and then Heidi stepped in, I actually felt like I was being represented. And although it took many more parole hearings and a few court runs for Heidi to argue on my behalf, I made it out. And the support that I had over all of those hearings, the support prior to the hearings from the students, from Heidi, from Michael, during the hearing, during deliberations of those hearings, and then the aftercare of putting us back together after we're denied suitability, all is what this project is about. I mean, I'm certain that you all as students don't have the insight, don't understand what you actually do for us. But it's something that I really can't put into words. The support that I received during those 6 hearings with PCJP, and all of that going back and forth to trial and a governor's reversal on top of that. So I had several law students, I think 4 or 5 altogether. So I owe so much gratitude to this program, and Heidi and Michael just continue to do the great work that you do, and blessings to you. And if there's anything, I'm sure any of your clients can offer you in return, we come running. So just thank you so much.
I can go. Well, first, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for listening, because this topic is just incredibly important. And I'm glad that we have a space where we can talk about it and can continue to talk about this work that we do. You know, Charles earlier, he spoke about how I was the first person of color that have ever represented him. And throughout, you know, the 30 years he was going through the legal process. And he talks about how it was easy for us to kind of relate to each other, and how there were just some things that he didn't need to explain because of just the shared experiences and the culture that we share. But I want to be clear that that does not have to be the case. There should be a world where a white student or, you know, an Asian student, whatever, can walk into that room and should also be able to understand his story and his experiences and what he went through. So I encourage all the students and all the attorneys that are on here to really, you know, dig deep and have these conversations and really reach out in these spaces so that we have more representatives that can understand, you know, some of these experiences that, you know, incarcerated people go through. It really should not take just a Black person to understand another Black person's triumph, right? So I encourage you all to continue this work, continue coming to talks like this. And if anyone has questions about what we do or wants to reach out and talk more about this, I would be happy to speak with you.
Charles, you want to finish us off?
Well, first, I'd just like to say thank you all for having me. This has been a wonderful experience. I mean, Ashley, Anna, Mike, Heidi, Eunice, I mean, the whole clinic, it changed my life. I don't know if there are any other students that are on there that have clients or maybe getting clients. One thing I can say is be firm but fair. You know, if you as a representative or you as the attorney don't believe in your client, then who will? I mean, Ashley looks all pretty and nice, but after my denial, she didn't give me a chance to wallow in self-pity. She came in on every visit with, these are the things you need to be working on, you need to do this. And before I knew it, I was back at the board hearing again with a favorable finding this time. And that's because she came in and told me, this is what we're going to do, this is what you need to do. And when you do that, when you feel like there's somebody fighting for you, it even gives you that, especially when you had no one to believe in you ever in your life. Now you have somebody believing in you. It gives you that extra push to fight harder and go that extra mile, because you have somebody that sees something in you and you want to see that in yourself. They allowed me to see things about myself and learn things about myself. For so many years, I tried to be everybody's hero. I became my own villain. I was a detriment to myself because I knew how to be anything for anybody, but I didn't know how to be Charles. I knew how to be J95. I knew how to be anything but something positive, because I didn't think I was worthy of anybody to want to be there and help me. And I just thank them so much. Just thank everybody for helping me understand my self-worth. So, thank you all for this opportunity.
I just want to close it by thanking everyone, reiterate, these conversations are not easy to have, right? But they're fundamentally important. The honor, especially all the students that are online today, the privilege that we have to study law is amazing, right? We have an opportunity to do great work and to help people who have been systematically thrown under the system, right? That have been, picked out because of their race, because of as Ashley said a little bit earlier, because of historic things that were happening in their community, right? Taking responsibility, but at the same time understanding that there are things larger than just one person that is at play here. And I think that us as law students who have this honor to be able to represent people and advocates, that's something that we should take as we move forward. I also want to thank Heidi and Mike for all and Eunice, I saw you're on the panel here as well. And thank you for all the amazing work that you do and teaching us in the clinic. I'm forever grateful to be learning from you all. And finally, the panelists, right? It is not easy to continue to share these stories. We talk often, but it is so important to be able to hear. And you're advocates for yourself, but also for the people who are currently in this. I like what Romarilyn said, this criminal injustice system. And so I really do appreciate your time. And I know, and I hope I speak for everyone when we say thank you really for taking the time to talk to us all today. It means so much. So thanks for all for coming, and I hope that we all gained a little bit today.